Hello guys, my name is Arun and welcome to my channel. This is actually a series of tutorials on computer terminologies for high performance computing. Now in the last tutorial, we just saw what a cache line is and a cache miss is. Okay. Now in this tutorial, I'll be explaining you guys some terms which are kind of not related to cache, but related to parallelism and some high performance computing terms. Okay, first two of them are first two of them are related to supercomputers, which will come across in some time. Okay, the next three are actually regarding processors. Okay, now first thing is a server. Now let's see what a server is. Now a server is actually a massive collection or a massive collection of computers, or a massive computer which is used for running calculations or doing computations. Okay, now this can be of any type. Now for instance, let's say you're hosting a website, and for example, let's take a website that is international, like Amazon. Now if you look at it, you have an Amazon website in an Amazon version for specific countries like Germany, India, United States, Britain, United Kingdom, and several other countries. Each version has their own. Now here's the thing: if you want to host a large website like Amazon, okay, which is available and accessible throughout the world by any person who can just log in. What you need is that you need a massive computer system which responds to each and every view by the customers. Like there might be like several thousands or several thousands of customers who might be actively searching Amazon websites for products and stuff, right? Now if this has to work continuously without any crash or something like that, then you need a big system, and those kind of systems are actually called as servers. They are actually nothing but a collection of computers, okay, or a one supermassive computer which is used for running computation. Like here, as far as Amazon is concerned, the computation here is nothing but processing the information the user is searching for, looking for, doing all the filtering, sorting, and displaying whatever the customer is asking for, looking for. And if the customer is willing to buy something, maintain the accounts, pass information, you know get the shopping list ready, payment transaction issues, and those things. Okay, these are all come under the computation and data processing part of Amazon. And one side, this thing. On the other side, with the same server and computers, what you can do is that you can do a lot of calculations. Like if you are on the computational part or the data analysis part, or if you're doing research, then the servers can also be used to do a lot of calculations. These are just computers, right? So you can just do all the calculation that you do with your laptop. Instead of your laptop, you can just use a machine to do the same. Okay, now that's a server. Okay, now a server can have several types. There are like different categories of servers and different types of servers. Depending on them, they might vary. Some of them they'll just store data, some of them are just for processing information, some of them are for hosting websites. So depending on the application, the customization of the servers might vary. Okay, now next thing is a cluster. Now a cluster is actually another. Okay, before I go to the cluster, just one more thing. When I say about a collection of computers, okay, what I mean by that is that the computers, they have individual CPUs, either close to each other, connected through local area network or through serial buses. Okay, or they might be connected through internet. Okay, all these computers may not be physically in the same location in some cases. Okay, they might be different parts of the country or different parts of the world, connected to each other through the internet, or they might be separate, located next to each other, whose motherboards and devices are connected through wires. Okay, that's what I mean by collection. Okay, and next let's go to cluster. Now if you understood server what it is, now cluster is just cluster is actually cluster is actually kind of similar. Okay, now what a cluster is, it's actually a supercomputer. Now if you look at it, server is, the server can also behave like a supercomputer only if you do some calculations on it. Like that's a difference. Server is just so if the server is is just for hosting information or something like that, then you call, if you have a large number of computers that you use for hosting information, then you call it server. And if you use computers for doing calculations and high performance computing or something like that, then people will give a different name called as supercomputers, and that's the difference between them. And cluster, what a cluster is that it's actually a form of supercomputer wherein the machine is formed by merging several small computers through network connections and LAN, just like in a server. You have multiple computers kept next to each other, and they are connected to each other through wires, like through some kind of network connections like fiber optic wires or LAN or just serial wires. Okay, and they're interconnected through data exchange. What I mean is, what I mean is, like, all the systems will be placed next to each other, and they will have some kind of an intermediate connection bus where all the data and information can be passed from one system to other system. Like each computer can communicate with each other and talk to each other through this PC data exchange. Okay, now they can be accessed separately, and they can behave like a single unit, and they can behave together. Okay, and what happens is that if you look at how the systems are connected to each other, they form like they look like a cluster. Okay, that's why you get the name cluster. Okay, sometimes what happens is that if within a cluster itself, there might be subdivisions. For instance, let me draw this, and then we might be in a position to understand. Let's say you have like 12, if you have like four computers, okay, four computers, and this can be called as a supercomputer as well, so a server, depending on whichever you name it. Now this is computer 1, this is computer 2, and this is computer 3, and this is computer 4, and all of them computer 4, and all of them have, what do you call, this is actually some kind of a data bus, let's say. Okay, some kind of a connecting mechanism that interconnects all the computers. As a consequence, one can connect to 4, 2 can connect to 3, 1 can connect to 2. All combinations are possible. Now this unit is actually called as a cluster. Okay, now this is a 4-computer system. This is for an example. This is a 4-computer system, so this can be collectively called as a cluster. Now what I'm looking at is that, suppose let's take new page at the end. Suppose let's take something like a 64 computer system, like 64 computers. Then what happens is that you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, four systems which are connected to each other by this data bus, which I call it DB, and then these data buses, okay, now this forms one collection. Let's call it collection 1. Okay, collection 1. Now what happens is that you have DB1, DB2, DB3, and DB4. DB4, and these are connected to each other through some other mechanism. Let's call this a master data bus. Now instead of 64, let me erase this. Now 64 might be too much over here. Now let's look at a 16 computer config. If you look at a 16 computer configuration. Okay. Now if you look at a 16 computer configuration, this is how it look like. Now essentially what happens because of this kind of a configuration is that in each data bus 1, you are able to access any one of the computers, and each data bus Okay, so you have 4 computers here, you have 4 computers here, 4 here. So because of this kind of a connection over here, you're able to link 64 computers together, means 16 computers together, and they can behave like a single unit. So what happens is that now if you call this as a collection, okay, this entire stuff can be called as a cluster. Now if you call this as a cluster, okay, instead of this terminology over here, if you call this as a cluster, which is again valid. Now if you call this collection as a cluster, then this collection can be called as a node. This can be called as a node, okay. Or else sometimes if you call this as a cluster, then this joint over here, which connects one the data bus to a computer, this can be called as a node. This can be called as a single node. Okay. So this is what I mean over here. Okay. All the systems are separated and connected to each other in a cluster pattern. Hence, they get the name cluster. Certain number of computers in a cluster can get united via a link called as a node. Okay, it depends on how the supercomputer architecture is. How the computers are connected, and this kind of an architecture differs between different supercomputer manufacturers. Okay, now with that the server and cluster part is over. Now let's look at latency, throughput.